Hi everyone, it's Dr. Graham with our Research Methods Week 1 wrap-up. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing a few things so that we're on the same page, and the first thing I want to review is the class structure. And perhaps more importantly, I want to explain sort of the reasoning behind the class structure, because I think if you sort of understand the bigger picture of the way that I've designed the class, then that will help you sort of organize your time and understand kind of where we're going. So I'd like you to sort of think of this class as a scaffolded mentorship. So I really want to try to apprentice you into this idea of doing research. And it will be very heavily scaffolded in the beginning, where we have a lot of scheduled time together, a lot of exercises, and then we'll move into a less structured middle unit. And then finally in the last unit, there will be very little scaffolding. Okay. So we're going to sort of like baby step you into it with the training wheels. So in unit 1, the focus is really heavily on content. We need to build and understand the content before we can begin to use it and talk about it. So this is about the first 35% or so of the class. And this first 35% of class is more structured. So it is a lot more heavily scaffolded. There's a heavy scaffolding there to, help you sort of navigate and get used to things. And here are the things that we're going to be focusing on during this first about third, a little more than third of our class. So we're going to be focusing on developing a shared vocabulary. If we're going to talk about research, we need to have a shared vocabulary of terms that we're using, to facilitate that conversation. So a lot of it is just learning the vocabulary. And I have a little asterisk here because this is going to connect to the very end of the video when we talk about the final exam. Okay. We also, during this first section, want to work on developing a shared understanding of the variety of research method designs. There's not just one way to do research. There's probably infinite. I mean, there's many different ways to do research. So we want to have a shared understanding of what are some of the common ways that we do research, and then what are the critical issues that are related to, for example, choosing one method over a different method. We're also going to be learning how to think like a scientist or a researcher, but then really also practicing that thinking. So practicing thinking like a scientist, practicing thinking like a psychologist. So we really want to focus on cultivating those critical thinking skills. We're going to learn how to, this is going to sound silly, but we're going to learn how to read again. Learn how to read and write like a psychologist. And then again, very importantly, practicing reading and writing like a psychologist or a researcher. Reading in psychology, reading research, reading, science journal articles is very different than reading a book or even a textbook. So we first need to figure out what is this that we're reading and how do you read this so that you can understand what it's saying, and practicing that skill. And then also learning the style that is used by psychologists and by scientists and researchers when they write about their research. So practicing writing up research using that style. These last 3 are less about content and about kind of creating that shared knowledge base before we start really applying things. But these last 3 are very, very important, I believe. And they're especially important to work on here in Unit 1 so that in Unit 2 and especially Unit 3, where there's very little scaffolding left for you, that you're already practiced with this. You've been doing it the whole time. You're used to this. So these 3 things are going to be really important as we move in class and we sort of start to take the scaffolding away. So number 1 is developing a sense of class and group community. So you're going to be forming your groups very early on. You're going to form your groups next week. And then you're going to be working with those groups the entire semester. So you want to cultivate that sense of sort of like group camaraderie and community. And then also we want to build that bigger sense of class community where we feel comfortable being with, sharing, talking, having, I don't know, this might be a stupid thought, but right, having those kinds of conversations and feeling like you can voice those things without somebody thinking you're stupid or being judgmental, right? Along with are developing effective communication skills. So we're really going to work on trying to develop those communication skills early on, practicing that, and also developing effective collaboration and teamwork skills. So hopefully during the first unit, it'll give you a chance to start working together with your team and figuring out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Now, in this first unit, you're really going to want to schedule a lot of time for lots of page notes. If you look at the schedule, it's really heavy on page notes in the first third of the class. Lots of chapter quizzes. We're really trying to build that content knowledge very quickly here so that we can get in and start doing stuff. Also, lots of class discussions, videos. There's lots of videos to help you master the content quickly, and exercises. So that's what we're really going to be spending a lot of our time on in that first unit, the first 35-ish% of class. Now, the second unit is going to be focused more on developing skills and practicing skills. And again, this is about another 35%. So this next 35% of our class is a little less structured. There's some scaffolding still there, but it's really focused on practicing and applying the research concepts that we've been learning to a research study that we're going to do as a whole class. So that is study 1. So really going to work on practicing those concepts, how does that fit in with actually doing a research study? And you'll be involved in this process, not quite from the very beginning because I've already picked out the topic and designed the study, but then I'm going to sort of recruit you and explain to you, this is the method. Now let's write it up and let's see what the results were, and we'll go from there together. We're also going to be focusing on learning how to write an APA-style research report. So you will write a research style report for study 1, the one we're doing as a whole class, from start to finish, title page, all the way through appendices. So this, we're really going to walk through step by step together and break down what goes in which section so that when you get to writing your own for study 2, you feel more confident that you've at least done it once before. In the second unit, there's a lot less focus on learning new content. So the page notes start to slow down, quizzes slow down. But this is so that more time can be spent practicing applying the content and those skills that you're learning. In Unit 2, you're going to schedule time for still some page notes and some chapter quizzes as we wrap those up. But really classwork, which will be focused on writing up study 1, so activities or discussions aimed towards writing up that study, and a lot more team time to get together with your team and really learn how to write together as a team, because you will be writing a team report. Now, Unit 3 is where you really integrate that content and the skills together. So this is the final about 30% of our class, and it is much less structured. So this is only light scaffolding. I'm still there, I'm still available, but I'm not really holding your hand. I'm not, it's like first I'm holding your hand as you have training wheels, and then I let go and you have the training wheels, and then eventually we take those training wheels off, right? Here, you're going to ride the bike yourself. So the majority of the time in this last unit is going to be dedicated to team time. So you have a lot of time to work together on designing and conducting a study. And then also with consultations scheduled with me. So let's take a look here at what we're going to schedule our time for. So in this last section of class, you're going to want to schedule lots of team time. We have a lot of time dedicated to team time so that you can work on study 2. We'll also have scheduled consultations where you meet with your research supervisor, who is me. And this here's where it's really going to be important, that it will require a lot of good, clear, and consistent communication, both within your team, so among team members, and then also between me and your teams. So if we practice that good communication right from the start of class and we get in the habit of working together consistently and talking often, then by the time we get to this point, it should be habit, right? We're talking 3 months down the line. This third unit, this integration unit, this is really the time to flex those brain muscles and work on integrating the content from Unit 1 with the skills that you practiced in Unit 2, all while investigating some topic that is of interest to your group. So this is for Study 2. Study 2, your group will choose the topic. Your group will find the literature and will design the study and will collect the data and will analyze the data and then will report out your findings. Your group is going to do all of that for Study 2, which is why you need a lot of team time at this part of the class, right? So this is really going to take a lot of brain power to integrate that content with the skills and kind of weave them together and, again, practice this idea of conducting legitimate, good research. Now, this last section of class is, I designed it really intentionally, and it's meant to mirror sort of the grad school experience. So if any of you are planning on or thinking about going to grad school, this is going to be a very helpful experience for you to prep you for that process. So this is meant to mirror that grad school experience, meaning that it's you're doing supervised research, but really with the aim not of, discovering something amazing and doing amazing breakthrough research on your first try, but with the aim of learning from the experience of doing research. So fully expecting to stumble often or to plain do it wrong. Because sometimes that's the biggest part of the learning process is figuring out what not to do. So that will wrap up our third unit. Now, a couple other things. So number 2, I also wanted to just spend a moment and talk about the nature of the class. So research methods is very much a doing class. You will learn the content along the way, but the class is really a lot more about applying the information rather than just memorizing things. You're not just memorizing facts, you're learning how to do something. So you should plan to do a lot. You should plan to do a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of discussion, and a lot of application. Now, it is also a thinking class. So at the end of this course, you will not know everything that there is to know about research methods. You couldn't possibly know everything there is because it's just impossible to know, and things are constantly changing and improving and revising. People who have done research for 40 years could still learn more. So it's really more about learning a way of thinking. It's about approaching the way we think about something. So how do we scientifically approach questions and problems? And in this class, specifically questions and problems that have to do with people. Okay, so apparently I took too long recording this, and I didn't know there was a 15-minute limit. So let's pick up where we left off. So this final one for this section, the nature of the class. So this class is really about giving you the basic understanding of the principles of research, especially with regards to social science. so that you have the tools to be able to generally understand research findings, find legitimate sources of information, think critically about research and claims. These are all huge right now with the elections coming up and um, just statistics and facts and figures constantly being, shared about the pandemic and about, social justice issues. So these are all very important right now. You'll have develop the tools to be able to design basic research studies, and you'll get hands-on experience as you conduct social science research and report it out. So you get that firsthand experience. Next up, a few critical elements. So here, time management issues, procrastination, and anxious avoidance. This one is the one that always gets me with my anxiety. I get a little anxious about completing some task, and so I put it off. And then I get more anxious about it and I put it off more. And I keep putting it off until I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm stressing so much about it. And then I make it 10 times harder than it ever had to be, right? So time management issues, procrastination, and anxious avoidance, those have got to be the number one challenge to success in this class. So I just want to acknowledge that up front. So what I want us to do is to work hard here at the beginning of the class, me too, because this affects me too. While we still have this beginning of class energy, let's work hard to develop some good habits, create a schedule, and put in some effort to stick to it. Because once you're a little behind, it is really easy to get a lot behind. And really work on being open, direct, and non-judgmental in our communication. And hopefully cultivate a class community that is supportive, challenging in a good way, and ultimately, hopefully, rewarding experience. Okay, so we are a community college after all, so let's build that community in our classes. And communication is key. Now, life happens and sometimes priorities shift or things come up. That's totally to be expected, especially in times like right now when it's very dynamic, things are constantly changing, and it is very challenging all around. So just keep in mind that even a quick note or a quick little check-in or I'm super busy, but I'll get back to you on Friday, can go a long way to easing anxiety or showing support to each other. And keep in mind, maybe if you're not hearing from someone, maybe they've got something really big going on. Maybe, we don't know what's going on outside of our shared classroom space. And so patience and flexibility are really crucial too. So if you're not hearing from somebody, maybe it's because they're really struggling. And if you reach out and do a quick check-in, maybe they really could use that support. So just things to be mindful of to help ensure our collective success in this class. And finally, I want to wrap up by saying, have you taken the final this week? So I've designed the final intentionally to be a learning tool. So I recommend that you practice learning a little bit of new vocab each week. So for example, work on one chapter each week, and then use that final exam as a study tool to check how you're doing, to check your knowledge. Okay? If you focus on just learning 10 terms each week, 10 research terms, it's not a whole bunch, then after 10 weeks, our class is 16 weeks plus finals, after 10 weeks, you'll have 100 points and you'll have earned 100% on your final exam, and you won't have to worry about it again because you already got the stuff down, right? So keep in mind, you can take that final exam up to 18 times because I designed it that way back when semesters were 18 weeks last semester. I'll have to update it to 16, but you guys get an extra lucky too. Attempts, take it up to 18 times and you keep your highest score. So again, use it as a tool that's was designed for is to each week Test yourself. See how you're doing. What do you need to work on? Okay. So that is it for our week 1. I hope that clarifies some things, and I look forward to continue working with each of you in our scaffolded mentorship together. And I hope that you, by the end of this course, have a much better understanding and appreciation of research and research methods. All right. Have a great weekend, all.